Yeah, don't be shy. My presentation is not on virtual reality, but if you have a couple of loggers, you'll be experiencing some form of virtual reality. So don't be shy, crack those cases open. As long as there are no representatives from Alcohol and Gaming Division here today, we should be good. So my name is Joshua Counsil. I'm a co-founder of Good Robot Brewing in Halifax, and I'm also a marketing consultant who believes that the best marketing costs nothing. So, how did I arrive at this thesis? By the way, today has been kind of a great demonstration on a lot of the channels that startups and small businesses should be using for marketing. A lot of talks about email, website, social media. One that I've noticed as a gap today is PR, public relations, and I would be investing there as a small business as heavily as possible. So a little bit of a theme to my chat. So how did I arrive at the thesis of the best marketing costs nothing? In December 2015, Good Robot opened its first tap room in the north end of Halifax. Across the street from us was an abandoned school. Next door to us was a mosque. And Roby Street was also the main thoroughfare, and still is, for emergency vehicles in Halifax, which meant that every 20 minutes or so, our customers were serenaded with the soothing sounds of ambulance sirens. So this was not an ideal location for a store or a tap room. And around that time, we had a pretty scary realization that if things didn't change and we didn't get butts in seats into our tap room, we would be bankrupt in 3 weeks. So, how did we survive? That is not me. This is big business. Big business sends costly signals with big advertising spends. Effectively, big business is the guy trying to attract a mate by driving his Beamer 100 miles an hour through a school zone. And we all know what they say about guys with flashy sport cars. They have really small imaginations, right? Really small imaginations. This is a huge advantage for small businesses because while we can't compete with spend, you'll lose every day of the week, we can compete with other costly signals. What do I mean when I say costly signals? In biology and behavioral economics, there is a theory called costly signaling theory, and it essentially states that the value that we attribute to something is correlated with the expense in which it's communicated. So the more the expense in communicating the thing, the more value we attribute to that thing. Now you can show expense by actually spending money, but if you don't have money and you don't need it, there are other costly signals in nature and in business. Effort is one of them, creativity, generosity, and bravery, all forms of costly signals. So one of the ways in which you can compete as a startup trying to grow your business is with effort. Labatt Molson last year did about 60 store visits to the Nova Scotia Liquor Corporation. It's not bad. It's about once a week. Guess how many Good Robot Brewing did? 360 in-store samplings. Basically one for every day of the year, giving away our product for free. And subsequently, this level of investment in our people giving away beer for free has led us to be the fastest growing brand in our category for 2 years running. And our wholesales have been going up 40 to 50% year over year in a category that is currently stagnant. The product that is leading the pack, also available on the fold-out table over there, is Diablo, our Mexican lager. It's basically a Corona with lime zest and jalapeno in it. That is the appropriate reaction. Yeah, you better hand some out, Wes.
You had us at beer.
Yeah, that's right. Lydia was mentioning sensorial earlier. Yeah, crack that open. Do it, next to the camera if you can. So this is Diablo Mexican lager with lime zest and jalapeno. Now, interestingly, when we were in those stores doing all those samplings, Diablo a few years ago was almost delisted because sales were static. And we were talking to store managers, They pointed out that consumers were afraid to try it because they thought it would be too spicy. Ooh, Agatha Christie. Okay, so interestingly, we did a review mining exercise where we took all the reviews of Diablo and dumped them into ChatGPT. And I said, tell me the 3 most important attributes about this product. And what it spit back was these 3 things. The things that people talk about most with this product are, unsurprisingly, the jalapeno and the lime, 2 important pieces, but also just the right amount of heat. The heat is nicely balanced. It's got a little zip to it. It's not too spicy, it's just the right amount of heat. So on the one hand, in-store they're saying people are afraid to try it. This is such an amazing sound. Oh my God, it's just a bunch of carbonated, malted grenades going off in here. It's glorious sounds to my ears. So this product was almost delisted, and part of the reason for that was that consumers were afraid to try it because they thought it would be too spicy. But on the other hand, the reviews were saying it's just the right amount of heat. So how did we bridge that gap? Anyone ever tried Halo Top? If there's anyone who works on a farm in the room, I'm not going to insult you by calling it ice cream. This is a frozen dairy product that was originally released in the market as a protein supplement for weightlifters. Basically a treat they could have at the end of the day. So front and center on the packaging were the most important attributes and macronutrients for a weightlifter, which would be protein, carbohydrates, calories. But interestingly, when they put the product in the market, it wasn't weightlifters who were buying it. It was people looking to lose weight. And what do people who are looking to lose weight care about? Calories. Right? So over time, by listening to customers in store and iterating the product design, they actually made the primary product attribute front and center calories. And not only that, has anyone besides me gone on a diet before? Have you ever caved? You're I'm cutting back.
Where do you work at?
Good Robot Brewing?
No, I thought it was cutting calories.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, it hasn't been going well. So if you've ever gone on a diet before, you've probably caved and eaten the entire pack of Oreos or eaten the entire tub of ice cream. So not only do they put the calories front and center on the packaging, they put the calories for the entire tub. 280 if you cave and eat the whole thing. And this was an enormously successful iterative excellence exercise for this company. In just 2 years, along with a healthy PR push, they toppled their competition in market share, just dominated. And Time Magazine actually called them the best product of the year, one of those years. So we borrowed this concept for our Diablo. This was the original artwork, okay? And it's no wonder that consumers thought it would be too spicy. Look at that thing! Oh my God, it looks like a hot sauce. There's a giant sweating, heaving devil on the front, dying and agonizing, picking up this keg, right? There's a blade with a skull with a blade through it. And not to mention, consumers couldn't pronounce it. Nova Scotia doesn't exactly have the strongest Spanish heritage. So El Espinazo del Diablo, they weren't calling it that. They were saying, can I get an Espinito? Can I get an ESPN? Can I get an Estrogenenza? So they couldn't say the word properly. And also, remember the lime and jalapeno, the 2 most important things in the reviews? Nowhere on there, right? So over time, we iterated the packaging design, made the colors a little cooler, kind of like the cans you're holding, right? Changed it to Diablo, which is what they were calling it anyway. Put the lime and jalapeno on the front of the can, and it doesn't suddenly look so explosively hot, right? And we changed the messaging, and with the right sales push, this went from a product that was almost delisted with static sales to our #1 seller today for 4 years straight, and our fastest growing product might be going into New England next year. So the exercise, what's that? 25% more? Yeah, no, that's right, yeah. Oh, right. You know what? That strategy might change this afternoon, so 25% more, yeah. Maybe we'll send it to Mexico. That exercise I just went through, that's called review mining. Taking a bunch of reviews, dumping it into a data analyzer like ChatGPT, and then performing analysis to get actionable insights out of it. So you could do this with products. You can also do it with services and bricks and mortar. So I did this with our original pub in the North End, took 900 Google reviews from 10 years of customers, and put it into ChatGPT, and then did the same thing for another local craft beer bar, who shall remain unnamed, and said, what are the competitive advantages of us versus this company? And what it spit back was, the competitor excels in offering exceptional beer quality, a curated selection, and knowledgeable staff, whereas Good Robot is known for welcoming atmosphere, community engagement, and entertainment events. So what do I do with this information? Well, this gives me my 2025 strategy for our hospitality company, doesn't it? We're not going to invest in having the most world-class, hard-to-get beers. We're going to invest in warm, welcoming service, hiring the right people, creating a nice atmosphere, and doing some fun, talkable events. This is Skip's Kitchen. Skip's Kitchen is a diner known for its award-winning burgers. Interestingly, the most commonly used word in Google reviews of this place is not their food, it's deck of cards, which is presented to every customer at the end of each meal, and if you draw the joker, your meal's on the house. This is Holiday World out of Indiana, one of the few family-owned amusement parks remaining. It has 3 of the top-rated wooden roller coasters in the world, but their Google reviews' most mentioned attribute is not roller coasters, it's sunscreen, which they give away free to all customers. They also give away free soda, by the way. Okay. Wall Drug out of North Dakota was many years ago a failing business. It was on its way out. But they were staring at the highway of people driving through the prairies through a long drive and wondering, I bet they're pretty thirsty. And they started offering free water, put a sign outside their business, and it went from a business that was failing to a 2 million person per year tourist destination with a sign that said free water, okay? You can't compete with the big boys' spends. You can compete with generosity. Part of the reason for that is that it's really hard to sell a CFO on the bottom line contribution of something you're giving away free, okay? Big business can't take that gamble. Small business can. You can pivot and switch, test and iterate, try things, measure, and so on and so forth. Huge advantage for you. Costco knows this very well, gives away samples of products, right? The likelihood of a purchase of the products that Costco samples for free in terms of purchase intent goes up 2,000% when there are free samples given out. 2,000%. 2,000%! That's insane! 15% would be significant. 2,000%, we should all be giving away our product every day, everywhere for free. If I were a local landscaping company, I'd be doing a free trimming in a neighborhood with a high intent prospect every week. Just do it for free, take some cool social media photos, right? Make a bit of a production out of it. If I was a physio clinic, I'd be going to local offices and doing stretching courses for free at lunch. Just get in front of the people, show them what you got, get the face there, right? Generosity is something small business can compete with super successfully. Terex Cafe, a long-term cafe in Halifax, it's on our block. When you walk through the door at Terex, you don't buy anything. Your first engagement is they give you a free cup of hot soup every time, right? And it's amazing, an amazing little costly signal of generosity, warmth, and hospitality that drives long-term business. Subway is right next door to Terex, always empty, and Subway doesn't give away anything for free except a mysterious odor that saturates your clothing. So you can also compete with attitude, by the way. This is the Sip and Dip bar in Montana. It's a popular dive bar. The most frequently mentioned review in its Google My Business is mermaids, which they have swimming behind the bar every night after 10 p.m. Luckett Vineyards in the valley here in Nova Scotia, 50%, roughly 50% of its user-generated content is selfies with a red phone booth that they have in the middle of their vineyard. What do red phone booths out of England have to do with wine? Absolutely nothing. And that's often what makes a good PR story, is zigging where the competition or the industry zags. So Good Robot, in our Google reviews for our first 2 years of operation, one of the more commonly mentioned strange attributes of our company was an event called silent reading, in which there's no phones, there's no talking, it's just 2 hours of sipping beer and reading a book. That's it, okay? And when we were 3 weeks from bankruptcy in early 2016, with one Facebook post and 72 hours notice, we filled our taproom to capacity with this event. And why did that work with a single unpaid organic post about silent reading at a pub? Well, in a city that is known for power hours and Kayleys, the concept of reading quietly while drinking a pint is kind of the opposite of what everyone's doing. It's a really strange concept. They don't work every time, but these kind of things are worth experimenting with. And this helped to put us on the map. Not to mention, I did about 24 media interviews about this event over the next 2 years, and it became 5% of our website traffic. Okay, so how do we zig when they zag? Early into our tap room, we had a server who was being harassed for wearing crop tops. Now, industry standard in hospitality around that time was grin and bear it, suck it up, the customer's always right. We didn't necessarily agree with that. We didn't want our server getting harassed. So we created an event called Crop Top Tolerance Day, or hashtag CrowToto, which is written across my belly. Rex Murphy's face in this interview, by the way. If you get a copy of it, it's fantastic. CrowToto. So this was basically us going against the industry standard of the customer's always right and standing in solidarity with an employee. And hashtag CrowToto became sort of an annual celebration for our company that drew the right kind of people that we wanted in our bar. And it pissed a lot of people off. That's part of the secret of PR, is you got to piss somebody off, okay? Another way we zig when they zag, Valentine's Day, typically targeted towards couples, right? So we made a sexy, fun, raunchy event for singles. And what do singles who are meeting at a brew pub for the first time need? Condoms. And wouldn't it be fun if those condoms were branded with our mascot, Roby the Robot? Well, Canadian Border Services didn't think so. They seized the condoms at the border, sent us this letter, and we decided to take a picture of that letter, put it on Facebook, and called it Good Robot Promotional Fail, number 437, seized condoms at border. Next thing you knew, I was in international media interviews, including BuzzFeed. I think to this date, still the only craft brewery to be on BuzzFeed. And this just drew a ton of attention for our, this was a month after Crop Top Tolerance Day, by the way. So people were coming into the bar going, you got those condoms, right? And just everyone wanted them, and they couldn't get them, and it just drove a lot of hype. It was a lot of fun. By the way, our customers called it Rubbergate. So, quick little anecdote. I was at BMO opening a new account, a checking account, and they needed 2 pieces of government issue ID, and I only had one. So, panicking, I was kind of looking around the room, and I saw on the account manager's desk a Chronicle Herald newspaper with this as the headline. And there was me on the front page with my Brutang Clan t-shirt and my stupid grin. I would have taken a better picture if I knew how far this story would go, right? And it's not exactly government issued, but they did accept this as my second piece of ID when I pointed out. So I successfully opened my bank account. So yeah, that was a fun little romp, if you will. Okay, so let me actually back up 1 second before I go there. We were talking a little bit about personal branding earlier, right? Having a distinct point of view, having a point of view, and kind of being the face of your business. Big business cannot recreate you. It can't recreate your opinion. It can't recreate your face. It can't create your who you are, right? That's an advantage that you have as your personal brand promoting your product or service. So I'm not going to say I was proud to be the face of a condom scandal, but I'm glad there was a face for a condom scandal. Good PR stories happen when businesses or other organizations have a point of view, right? Zigging where they zag. The New York Times used to say, I don't care about a story in which a dog bites a man, but I do care about a story when a man bites a dog, okay? So let's talk about having a point of view and being brave and basically not being afraid of upsetting the right people. So there's nothing new about vegans protesting butcher shops or meat-focused restaurants. This is Antler in Toronto. For weeks it had vegans outside of its restaurant protesting. The owner got fed up and decided to counter-protest by butchering a leg of deer in full view of the protesters in the window and cooking it and then eating it. Now, most of the restaurants they engaged with, protested, actually had conversations with them, sat down, changed their menu, you know. Chances are they didn't want to, but they were just scared and they didn't want the negative press anyway. This guy just leaned in, right, and just butchered a deer in front of these people. And they went, we're going to get him. But I mean, next thing you know, Patton Oswalt, the comedian's tweeting about it. Joe Rogan has him on the podcast. He's doing late night television about this. And his restaurant just exploded. In 2023, he actually turned his patio into a hunting camp. And last year, he became one of 50 restaurants in Canada to receive a Michelin star, one of the first 50. So he's been growing very, very well. So the point of all this is that, again, we cannot compete with the big guy by advertising spend. But we can compete with creativity, with effort, with bravery, with generosity, and a distinct point of view. Okay? Now, unfortunately, the reality for startups is that even when we do this, it doesn't always work in our favor. The odds are very much stacked against us. This was one of my favorite Nova Scotia businesses. This is Dilly Dally Cafe on Quinpool Road in Halifax. They opened around 2016. Scott and Laura are the owners. They quit their hotel jobs to make a cafe that is very community-oriented. They put their investment into it. They put their lives into it. They work crazy hours to keep this place alive and built a community following of coffee lovers for many years until guess who moved in across the street? Starbucks. Starbucks moved in 2018. Starbucks has the big advertising spend. Starbucks has the brand awareness. Starbucks has the customer following that a local cafe cannot compete with. And guess what happened next? Starbucks closed. Plot twist. Yee-hoo! Wow! P.S. I actually love Starbucks, but you know, for the purpose of this story, it's a fun story. Starbucks closed. All right? I was flabbergasted by this. I mean, I go to Dilly Dally. I love it there. It's great, incredible hospitality experience. I asked Laura about her opinion on what happened. She gave it to me. But also, I just wanted sort of a more objective point of view. So I went to the customers. I copied all their Google reviews and using the review mining exercise from earlier, dumped them into ChatGPT and said, or I did the same thing with Starbucks, by the way, and said, how did this little cafe beat Starbucks, outlast Starbucks? And here's what ChatGPT spit back, slightly edited for brevity. Number one, Dilly Dally has more creative products, creativity, like a cardamom rose latte. Number two, Laura and the team offered remarkable service. That review below, I think, is exemplary of what that means. A place like this is impossible to recreate if you don't have Laura and her lovely staff. Impossible to recreate without Laura, the face, the voice, the owner, right? Number three, Dilly Dally had a distinct point of view. This one was interesting. They actually had a couple of negative and positive reviews because they don't have Wi-Fi. They don't have laptop spaces. Now that sounds like suicide for a small cafe, right? The laptop crowd is your bread and butter, but they zigged where others zagged. They wanted to prioritize community building over co-working. So, we did survive bankruptcy, spoiler alert. In fact, today, Good Robot has 3 hospitality venues. We've got export sales across Canada. We're the fastest growing brand in our category. And in 2023, we actually launched a beverage factory, which is a beverage co-packing and co-manufacturing facility that manufactures other company products. So we have almost 40 Atlantic Canadian clients that we produce for: canned wine, energy drinks, anything that is liquid that goes into a can, pretty much. And that's been growing great. And by the way, all those clients, those Atlantic Canadian clients, also have really small marketing spends. So the point of all this is that phone booths sell wine. Free sunscreen sells theme park tickets. Jalapenos, crop tops, and condoms sell beer. Okay? Right? We can't compete with their dollar spend, but we can compete with generosity, effort, creativity, point of view, bravery, etc. So if giving away free water can turn a failing drugstore into a 2 million visitor a year business, and if protesting vegans can put you in the category with other Michelin restaurants, if a little cafe can outlast Starbucks, and if a silent reading event can turn a business 3 weeks away from bankruptcy into a nearly $8 million business 10 years later, imagine what your startup can do. My name is Joshua Counsil. Thank you for listening. I'll see you at the pub.
What a delicious way to end the day. What a great message, and what great themes we've seen from the whole day, come to a head here in the end. So I'll open up the room for conversation, questions, and we'll go here first and then right here.
It's fantastic, by the way.
Thanks, Nate.
What are some signals when you shouldn't zig instead of zag?
Unpack that for me a bit.
So, having no Wi-Fi at a coffee shop, some people like it, some people don't. But when are some times when to go against what we see as a status quo might actually harm the business? What are signals that we can look to make sure? Because I'll be honest, I very much like to. It's like the purple cow marketing.
Yeah.
I like to do what others don't. But sometimes I worry that I might go too far, and I find myself pulling back a little bit on how much farther I could go. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I try to look for signals where let me know that I can go actually a little bit farther, maybe 20% farther, and get more of an impact out of that. But I'm worried I might go too far.
Oh yeah, I've gone too far many times. Yeah, that's where testing and learning and what's that?
That's how you got on Buzz.
Yeah, but buzz being the operative term. Well, I showed a lot of examples that worked, right? I also know of a cafe that didn't offer Wi-Fi, and I can't say for sure, but it did go under, and it was one of the more common complaints, right? So, the old Henry Ford adage is, if I had listened to customers, I would have made a faster horse, right? So sometimes listening to customers is not always to your favor, because they're going to offer an extension of what you do today. If you ask them about, what should we offer, and you're a pub, they might say chicken wings, they might say trivia night, right? And sometimes it's really good to listen and act on that information, and sometimes you got to take a gut gamble on something and go, you know what, I got excited by this idea, and then I told an employee that I trust, they got excited, and then I told 2 or 3 other customers who I trust to not spread it on, and they got excited, right? Not overanalyze it, but just go, is it a little bit titillating? And if they kind of get fired up, that's usually how I go about it, right? Including if they get nervous. If they get a little bit nervous and excited, and they start going, I like it, but that's often a good sign for me. So we did a promotion at the beginning of COVID that I borrowed from Dunkin' Donuts, where basically we have a large medical following at our pub. Like 50% of our Christmas parties are hospitals and nurses and whatnot. So, and then we also have frontline employees who were quite at risk at the time. So it felt like we hadn't done anything fun in a while, so I did a Pints for Pro-Vaxxers promotion, in which if you showed a Band-Aid on your arm or a needle mark or whatever, you got a free pint. By the way, also very illegal in Canada, but I think that at the time the nurses are like, we don't care. Just like, please get people to do this. Now that pissed a lot of people off. That upset a lot of people, right? We definitely lost some customers out of that. We gained some. It's a gamble, right? But it's you got to kind of go with your gut in those situations of like, do I feel really good about this idea? And if I float it to a few trusted people. Do they have the response I'm looking for? And in my case, I tend to be the craziest person at the company. So if an operator is like, oh, I don't know, Josh, I'm like, good. That's the reaction I want.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Thanks, Joshua. Definitely, I agree with you. PR is far superior than advertising. Full stop. Just wanted to know, what was the name of your co-packing company that you have?
The Beverage Factory.
Beverage Factory?
Yeah, less creative than Good Robot.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so I'm a friend of Bridget Morrissey, so I lived through every one of your promotions.
A friend of who, sorry?
Bridget Morrissey.
Okay.
Yeah, so like every one of those things were brilliant, particularly all the ones that worked. They were amazing. The condom thing was fabulous.
Thanks.
So here's my question. That's all B2C, and I wonder how you feel about those same approaches in a B2B world, particularly if you're the second part of that B is actually big business.
Yeah.
You're actually selling the big business.
100%.
And yet still you feel like you should have a voice.
So, real life example, leveraging our Beverage Factory. The Beverage Factory produces for a lot of Atlantic Canadian clients, but we also have a Fortune 400. We also have a $4 billion company out of the United States as a client. They're all on non-disclosure agreements, so I can't talk about them. Right when we were launching that service in 2023, we got sued. And that went to CBC News, that went to, for some reason, Yahoo Finance in the UK covered it. You never know where these stories are going to go, right? Now, that seemed like a pretty major deal as kind of our first spotlight with this very professional B2B service. We're still dealing with the courts, and we probably will be for the next 5 to 7 years. But fundamentally, it got a lot of the big consumer packaged goods players to DM me on LinkedIn and go, hey, we've all been there. We've all been there. And suddenly there's the largest non-alcoholic beer in the category in Canada DMing me. And suddenly there's the third largest craft brewery in the country, the second largest wine group, and so on and so forth. And they're going, hey, saw the story, that sucks, we've been there, etc. So it got the attention of the right audience, even though it was a negative PR story. I think with B2B, which, almost all my little marketing side hustle that I do is with professional B2B services, and they do tend to be more hesitant to take a gamble because they think they're very, very humble people, but they're often a little grandiose about their business. I mean, it could be an $800,000 a year business in the middle of nowhere, and they think of themselves in a very grand way and think the whole world is watching. So I think there's ways that you don't necessarily have to really deeply upset people, but I think you have to cause some kind of emotional reaction as a B2B service with the right audience. It could be excitement, it could be wonder, it could be surprise. There's something there that you have to do that they, in my experience, tend to be a little more wary of, but I don't see it as mutually exclusive from the B2C angle. I think B2C just does it more frequently because you're selling an $8 product to thousands of people instead of an $8,000 product to dozens of people. So they're more afraid of B2B is more afraid of what is on the table in terms of stakes.
Any other questions, comments?
Awesome presentation, Josh. So thanks for that. I have two questions because I'm fascinated by your story, completely turning things around. So easiest question is, how many employees are you guys up to? Like, you've got a lot going on. And then my second question is, what was the turning point for you? Because there must have been something that kind of clicked, when you were on the brink of bankruptcy and you decide, okay, I'm going to completely change things and turn this around. What shifted in your thinking?
So to answer the employee part, depending on the season, because there's still two arms of our company, the hospitality arm and the wholesale arm, in which beer is very much you make your hay in the summer and then you build in the winter. So currently it's about 55 in our slow season. Wow. In the summer it'll be 100-ish, depending. So-
Amazing support for the community. That's
Thank you.
fabulous.
Yeah, and it's fun because we've got brick and mortar in Halifax, sort of the most urban dense part of Atlantic Canada, and then also in Elmsdale, Nova Scotia, which is kind of suburban rural, right? Very different value systems. If anyone is looking, somebody asked earlier today about if I haven't started my business, I think it was you actually, if I haven't started my business, I'm pre-revenue, how do I find my audience? And there's an amazing online tool called Prism, P-R-I-Z-M. If you enter a postal code, it shows you the persona or avatar that is dominant in that region. So it gives you a starting place, and it tells you what they value. So when I use that tool for Elmsdale versus the peninsula, you've got opposing attitudes like this person believes a brand reflects who they are, the brand that they purchase and support, whereas these people believe that the country should have a strong position in the world, right, in terms of like dominant belief systems. So it's interesting to see the employees and the customers that we attract in each region. Your second question, could you repeat that? I've gone on a fun little garden path here.
What tweaked or changed
What
from
tweaked or
going
changed?
from almost bankrupt? So obviously your business model kind of wasn't working. I mean, obviously you weren't in a great location, but besides that, something must have really kind of shifted. Can you pinpoint what shifted for you?
The thing about what shifts is my psychologist, Dr. Conrad, would say that there are three prerequisites for change. One is the willingness to change, which comes down to the individual. The second is a support system, which could be as simple as a book or somebody they follow, or it could be a little deeper than that. The third is an external circumstance, and one that usually dramatically impacts them, something like losing a job or COVID or death in a family, right? And so change management can be tricky. When you are on the brink of bankruptcy and you either win or lose, you fundamentally are going to change in one way or another. But also the thing about bankruptcy is that as a small business, and really as any business, cash flow never becomes a non-issue, right? It's just a matter of how long the runway is. So when we say weeks from bankruptcy, there's probably about 25% of all businesses in Canada that are 3 weeks from bankruptcy, and they just don't know it, because monitoring cash flow is, for us, at as early as a few weeks ago, a daily exercise, right? So even though we've grown and we appear successful, that part hasn't changed. We're still in what they call Death Valley, the sub $10 million range, where you have a lot of employees out of necessity, but not enough revenue to kind of make the thing really efficient and streamlined. So it's a challenging place to be perpetually. Mentally, what has shifted is not, oh, well, we did that, and now we think this way. It makes a nice story, but the reality is that 6 weeks ago, and for the past 4 years, we have been anywhere from weeks to a month from bankruptcy with our beverage factory, because we had a $100,000 line of credit with a $750,000 month carry on receivables and inventory. So we're begging family or friends or lenders to make payroll, right? That never changed. That never went away. That exists for so many businesses. The bigger ones just tend to have access to larger networks and whatnot who can give them a bridge loan when things really hit the fan that sometimes small businesses don't. But the big businesses have major cash flow constraints. So I'm not sure that anything happened like, we did this and now we know how to business, right?
Fair
Right?
enough.
It's an ongoing battle.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that you just need to be really fluid and go with the way things are out there and be adaptable to change.
Yeah, I think adaptability, you hear that one a lot with kind of thought leaders of the necessity of adaptability and gumption in entrepreneurs and business leaders. Because, this tariff situation, I mean, here's how cans work in Canada. We process the aluminum in Quebec, we send it to the States manufacture the cans, they send them back. So that beer that everyone's enjoying right now, the aluminum part is quite expensive. And that's about to, and not just for us, but for every beverage in the entire Canadian and Mexican market and beyond, right? So it's and that's just in the last hour or so, right? I've had my phone on mute, right? So I don't know what other shit shows are waiting in the inbox, but there's always something, right? There's always something.
Thanks for sharing. Really
of course.
appreciate it. Amazing story.
Maybe you just start your own aluminum can.
Start my own.
Aluminum can.
If we can find a $175 million investor, I am 100% with you. But there isn't one in Canada, not one. They're all in the States.
No problem.
There's Ball. There's what's the one that starts with S? There's a few dozen anyway in the States. Yeah, but we have the aluminum and the processing for the aluminum, right? Just like the West Coast or the prairies, Alberta and Saskatchewan have a huge amount of grain that often gets shipped to Montana or Dakota, North Dakota, malted there, shipped back, brewed, right? I mean, there's just such a serendipitous supply chain relationship there that's existed forever. So that'll be a challenge. Yeah. Well, funny. Guess who the five top malt producers in the world are? Canada, the United States, Germany, Ukraine, Russia. Yeah, great, wonderful. Right. So I think the beer category has been hit really hard. Right. Yeah. Yeah, we'll see.
And any other questions? Was that a hand raise or a scratch? That's a scratch. Yeah, okay, one more.
I'm not totally sure how to ask this, but like your transition phases when you were on the edge of bankruptcy to your growth.
Mm-hmm.
Any advice on making that transition easier and like, so if we're either going to stay the same or might have some growth. So it's like, how do I approach a big rush of new opportunities without draining what we've worked so hard to grow, you know what I mean? So a sustainable growth model, any advice in there?
Yeah, a little bit. Revenue is not cash. So the challenge is we doubled in revenue, 109% 2 years ago. Last year, we went up another 60, 65% or something like that. The cash position still was 3 weeks to 6 weeks bankruptcy at any given time, even though we were double the revenue. We needed more. We needed more cash. We needed more equity. So I own less than 20% of my own company. I can't technically join Entrepreneurs Organization. Technically, nobody at Good Robot could. They have a 25% ownership stake prerequisite to join. You have to give up and decide what you're going to give up in order to survive and grow. So the necessity for equity to support that cash was big. Finding the right banking partner. Farm Credit Canada is phenomenal. They have been with us every step of the way. They helped de-risk some of our business. So having really good relationships with your lenders, they helped bring on a charter bank partner that gave us the operating line of credit we required. And that only happened maybe 2 months ago. We went from $100K line of credit to about $900,000. So now we have the purchasing power required to carry the inventory we need to supply all these businesses and so on and so forth. So good relationships with your lenders, right? What are you willing to give up? And also manageable growth. I have a lot, who was I asking about? Oh, he left already. I was asking about having too many bad leads come through our website who want to produce the world's next best energy drink. I get that guy 3 times a week. His name is Every Kid from Toronto. He's going to take on Mr. Beast, right? And he's got his dad's money, and he's got a pile of it, and he has no idea what it takes to grow a consumer packaged goods company, which is Incremental growth, iterate. Incremental growth, iterate the product. Incremental growth, iterate the design. Incremental growth, right? I get much more confidence out of the farmer who's had a product in the market for 40 years, who says, we're going to turn down this province and we're just going to cap growth at 15%, because they know that that distribution comes with a huge cost, right? And that is really what kills so many companies, is death by distribution. Is growing way too fast, way too quickly, and not having the resources to back it up. The revenue can kill you.
I was wondering if you could just speak a little bit to how social media is kind of like pulled into you and your business as well. Like I've seen you guys have, acquired quite the following. And I was kind of wondering if a lot of that did come from, whether it was the condom scandal or the crop top thing, but like how did you really build such a strong following on socials?
Yeah, it started with a book called Likeable, I think it was called, Social Media. It's a yellow book. In 2011, it was kind of the book to read. I didn't make it past the first chapter. So I was simultaneously working my mechanical engineering job in Seattle, but I read the one chapter and that's kind of all I needed, which was you're gonna have to piss some people off to be likable, because that's part of being human. People are gonna not like you just for who you are, whether it's your national identity or your clothes or whatever. So when when that registered, I started making our blog posts, and they were really unhinged, and they kind of talked behind the scenes about what we were going through, and how business sometimes looks sexy, but really it's being up at 4 a.m, digging the truck that's bringing your tanks out of the snow during a snowstorm, and CBC is on site because you're holding up Robie Street rush hour traffic with a truck that's parked perpendicularly in the street, and you're digging out while doing an interview, right? It just covered a lot of the ugliness, the behind the scenes piece. That started translating to social. And then when I started to get the hate just for being authentic, and the first instance of it was a homebrewer community called the Brewnosers, who were really big on the best quality beer and why don't breweries run like this, and kind of the Star Wars geeks of the category. They had gotten a copy of our incorporation documents, which are public domain, not hard to get. And there was one line in there that we didn't think about when we wrote it. We didn't think anyone would ever see this, but it said, what's your purpose? And it said, to educate and inebriate the Atlantic public about craft beer. And they latched onto that thing and said, oh, look at these guys from Calgary and the West Coast come to educate us poor, dumb Maritimers about craft beer. We must be so stupid. I mean, it was like 14 pages of shit, right? And I just went, this is insane. So I went to one of their meetings into the Lion's Den and realized that there would never be, I could never convert these guys, right? And so they became the anti-customer. They became the person that we positioned against. And so anything that craft was doing as a category, we kind of did the opposite of. So when there was a video that was, this very stoic, self-important I am a craft brewer video, and it was all these brewery owners going like, I don't put corn in my beer, I'm a man, I'm stoic, and look at me. And so we made a corn beer, and we made fun of that video, and instead of I am a craft brewer, we got all our employees to interview and say, I am filling the corn hole. The premise of the video was basically that the takeoff of craft had created a hole in the corn market, since nobody was buying corn for their beer anymore, and we had a corn hole to fill, and Good Robot's corn beer was going to fill that corn hole. So that video went local viral, and we had customers coming in by the dozens going like, fill my corn hole, shouting across the bar, whatever. Right? And it was like everything that craft was serious and self-important about, we just shit all over. Right? And every time we kind of had that anti-persona, I never knew who our target was, but I knew who our opposite target was. And we would leverage the hell out of Facebook, Instagram at the time. We didn't quite adopt yet, but yeah, Facebook was really heavy in those early days. It was and Twitter. We were big on there. That was really easy to engage with people then. So it was all about just taking what they're saying online, going, am I with them or against them, and then choosing the position. So yeah, social was how we made our bread and butter. Social and PR, and later on, you know, website and email. But if you're making less than 5 million as a company, choose one. Choose one thing, do it right. And when you hit 10 million, and this is my buddy who runs an agency in Halifax, this is his words, once you hit 5 to 10 million, 10 ideally, then you're ready for an agency. But he said, you're not sophisticated enough to lose money yet. And marketing requires losing. So don't go to an agency until you're willing to lose. Because if you're trying to penny pinch and measure everything, you're just going to get really upset. So those free channels, email, social media, a good website, PR, any of those are fantastic. And just lean into one that you like and where your customers are playing.